Welcome back to the Important Nonsense Podcast. 32 teams in 32 days. Pow, 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 pow. Neil Smith, Mike Burland, Jason Draven coming back, breaking down, doing what we do, breaking down every team, getting you prepped for your fantasy football drafts happening in about 2 weeks at this point. Today is the 16th of August as we sit and record this. As if we say anything that sounds dated, that would be why. A couple quick PSAs before we get started, as always. A lot of the base rankings that you'll hear us reference come from Fantasy Pros and the ECR. We are a Fantasy Pros affiliate. We will reference our own rankings as well, but shout out to Fantasy Pros. We love being part of your affiliate program. Thank you for having us. All the depth charts that we reference come courtesy of Player Profiler. Shout out to Jack Kavanaugh. Appreciate your work as always, my friend. Hope you're doing well. This is all focused around 12-team PPR, 16-round draft, the standard, as it were, the new standard, God's format. Thank God we don't have to play standard, as Steve calls it, no point anymore, because I agree with that. There is no point. The Steelers. Oh, one more PSA. Excuse me. How could I forget? Check us out at importantnonsense.com. Sign up to be a member and get access to our Discord. Come and get Furnace blasted by Jason Draven with all of his lovely hot takes. And also a new feature for our members.
There you go.
$5. $5. We will break down your team individually. We'll go through your league. We'll pack a room. We'll do you a personal live stream. It's a request we get all the time in season.
And whatever you ask.
Yep.
That's Dynasty as well, right? We'll do Dynasty.
Yep, Dynasty as well. Yeah. $5. We'll do whatever kind of team you have. I don't care. I don't care if it's best ball. We'll do it. We'll go through it with you.
World Cup women's soccer team.
I won't do that. I might find somebody to do that, but I won't do that myself. But we will break down your team for you individually and go through your league, pack a room for you. We get this request a lot in season in our Discord. $5. $5.
I'll be there and I'll just make you smile because that's how that works.
There you go. Perfect.
I'm the fun one of the bunch, if you haven't noticed.
That's actually factually correct. That's actually factually correct. I cannot argue that statement in any way. So we will break down your team for you. So sign up at importantnonsense.com. Hang out with us in our Discord for the season. We'll answer your questions, and for a fee, we'll break your whole team down for you. Because trust me, we get this a lot where people want to send us their whole roster and go, "What do you think about this?" It's like, just give it to me. Give me the whole thing. We'll go through your waiver wire, evaluate some trades. Mike and I'll talk about the trades with you. If you have trade questions in the Discord, post your team for the love of God. There's no way to answer this question without knowing what else is on your roster. And we'll give you some generic advice. And for $5, we'll take you all the way down the rabbit hole.
I will not help you with trade advice. That is not an area.
He will not. He will not do that.
I will absolutely ignore anything you put in there.
He does do that. But he's not shy about talking to you in meme format. He'll do that for you. He'll talk to you about memes.
TV shows, movies.
We'll talk to you about the Meg, whatever else you want to get. Yeah,
a plethora of information. But when it comes to actually caring about trades, not this guy. These guys.
That's what Mike and I do. Check that out at importantnonsense.com. Sign up. We look forward to talking to you all season long. Got a lot of good stuff going on in there. And it's not just that. We have all manner of other paywall content that we have off in the background that's all super helpful. Pro Tools, Mike's cornerback wide receiver matchup chart. That is an invaluable resource. I reference that myself. It's pretty rare you got a guy who's willing to do that for you. It's handy little tool.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mike Manning. Shout out to Mike Manning.
I'm talking about the only fans. My bad.
Oh no, that's the other website. That's the other content. It's the other content monster that we have in the background. Though we can't talk about that on the fantasy football side. We'll negotiate that with you individually. Hit us up in the DMs. Slide into those DMs, and we'll work that out for you. We'll work out a rate. All right. Well, before we get copyright striked or taken off YouTube, let's talk about the Steelers. Let's do our actual job. We are contractually obligated to talk about the Steelers. Mike Manning is not here to derail us with his Steelers love and his talking about Pitt, which was always goes hands in hand with him doing the show with us.
I mean, it is part of the name. It's like it's made right there.
It is right in the name. It's also not far away. So I get it.
Share the field.
Yep. Share a field. Absolutely. And you have a former Pitt product playing quarterback. Like you have all kinds of weird bleed with this team. But yep, coming back year 2, Kenny Pickett. I think we would agree. Well, at least I don't know if we'll agree, but I felt like Kenny Pickett outperformed my expectations for him last year. How do you guys feel about that?
I
My
mean, a
expectations
little bit,
were
yeah.
shockingly low, so that has something to do with it.
I was more impressed with his cast around him. So, I mean, that's part of the reason I like Freiermuth so much last year, and Johnson, and even I guess I was more away on Pickens, but still, that good cast around him to help boost him up. It's like a pyramid.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't have many expectations either. So I guess, yeah, they probably exceeded them slightly, but he was not very good last
He
year.
wasn't, but my
No.
expectations were really, really, really low. My expectations were like,
Mhm.
could you beat Mitch Trubisky, who is still here on this team and is the backup in his in the role he should have always had? Mitch Trubisky, backup quarterback. That sounds right. Look, Mitch Trubisky is a professional NFL player. I'll give him that much. He had no business being the starting quarterback for the Bears for all those years, but it is what it is. That's the Bears' decision making for you. But yeah, Kenny Pickett has outplayed Mitch. He's going to be the starter day one at this point. That decision has already been long buried. What I will say about Pickett is I'm not super interested from fantasy purposes, really. I don't think anybody is, to be honest. And we'll get into the ADP here momentarily. Backs that up. But he proved that he's good enough to Jason, to your point, he can make the players around him have fantasy relevance. He is good enough to do that. Mike, this is just a joke for Mike Manning. Everyone else can tune out. He passes the Tyler Palko competency test. He can snap the football. He can run plays. He can run the offense. It's if anybody remembers Tyler Palko, you should. Why are you not already signed up for importantnonsense.com? Because this is the conversation that we want you to have. Like, talk us about Tyler Palko and Devery Henderson and Marcus Colston and all the players of yesteryear that we
The name
remember.
I honestly heard was Shane Falco, and I'm like, we're talking about the replacements. Let's go.
No, we are not talking about it. Very different people. Those are very different people. If Shane Falco was coming into the league, we'd be having a different conversation. Like that's, but no, Tyler Palko is not Shane Falco. That's very different people. But Kenny Pickett opens the year quarterback 21 in the ECR, translates to 161 overall if you're going by where he should be being drafted. He's actually being drafted ADP 159. So right in line. Mike, you read for Aaron Rodgers is kind of the last train out of the station. Yeah, Kenny Pickett falls in about 7 spots in quarterback rankings behind that. So yeah, if you're down to Kenny Pickett, something has gone awry.
Yeah.
Must be a super flex.
It's a super flex, but no, this is redraft rankings. He's being drafted in your redraft. Can't say I'm very excited about it as it relates to him. If I'm starting him at quarterback, I feel like something has gone off the rails, as it were, because players going around him, Matt Stafford, Derek Carr, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Bryce Young, Ryan Tannehill, Kyler Murray. I feel like just about everybody on that list that I named within reason has more upside than what I'm going to get from Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett feels like, to me, this is my opinion, Kenny Pickett to me feels like Mac Jones in the first couple of years, where people are like, oh, you might get something. And then now people have kind of realized, like, no, this kind of is what it is. So I'm not going to roster Kenny Pickett.
The only thing I'll say, like the slight upside there, is he could have a rushing floor. He could have a rushing floor. He had a stretch where he was on pace for over 400 yards rushing, and then he got concussed and he didn't run after that really at all. So that's the only, pathway is like, can he get to that 500-yard rushing? And then
if he could do that, he wouldn't be QB 21 anymore. I'll tell you that right now. He'd be creeping up the list a bit.
Yeah, so that's the only, and he can run. We've seen him run in college. Like, he's not a statue. Like, he's athletic enough to maybe he could do that. But that's like really the only path. I want to roster someone with a little more upside.
I'm not hanging my hat on it. If it happened, great, but I'm not hanging my hat on that. And you absolutely got to where I was hoping we would get to. After that concussion, they did not let him run no more. It was throw it away, man. Throw it away, because they just couldn't. You can't risk getting your future franchise quarterback blasted in the head like that. It's not a good look for anybody. It's not good call. So there it is, folks. Kenny Pickett. Not something any of us are going to draft. Probably wouldn't recommend you draft him either. There are other players on that tier that I like more, and all of them are widely available. I'd much rather deal with Bryce Young just based on the idea that I don't know what that is. Could be anything. Could be a boat. You know how much we've been wanting one of those. Could be anything, man. Yeah.
It makes me laugh every time, man.
It's never not funny.
That show's so good.
That joke is old enough to vote. Okay, that joke could register to fight in the military. Like that joke is ancient, and it's still funny. It's never not funny. Shout out to all the old people that got that joke. By the way, I appreciate you all. Anybody, all the over 30s that are laughing at that. Like anybody under 25 has no idea what I'm talking about. It's just the cold reality of it. We'll go into running back at this point because they're really and Mitch Trubisky is going to be the same thing as a final thought. If he was to have to play because Kenny Pickett got hurt, well, we've seen that for a billion years. Mitch Trubisky is good enough to basically give you Kenny Pickett level production, and he's not going to crash the car. Mitch Trubisky just can't throw to his left, as we know. Never can, never will, not going to learn. So it is what it is. Don't know why he can't throw to his left or what the problem is with that. Been trying to figure it out for years. Kind of done with that problem. Like. It's one of those things like the Sphinx's riddle. It has no answer. Like, it's just move on.
Maybe he has astigmatism in his left eye.
I don't know. That's all wildly. That's reckless speculation, sir. Like I have no idea. Like it's. Shout out to the old segment on our old Wednesday show, Reckless Speculation, where we would recklessly speculate in a way that probably was going to get us taken off the air. We might bring that back for Thursdays, Jason, if there's time. Reckless Speculation was always a good. In fact, Reckless Speculation might just be the name of the show. That might be the name of the Thursday show moving forward. We'll just call it Reckless Speculation. But those are the old segments on the old Wednesday show: Narrative Street and Reckless Speculation, In a Vacuum, all the old hits. Oh God, I miss it. The running back room. Boy, this gets easy. I love the Steelers because it's so easy. It's so easy to do the running back room. Najee Harris, still the RB1 on this team. Deeply frustrating for fantasy managers last year. A lot of negativity baked into that. But Mike, help me talk some people off the ledge. Because I think the haterade, similar to Swift from yesterday's show, I get the negativity because of what the expectations were. But when you look at it at the end of the year, it wasn't that bad.
No, it wasn't. He's had a weird career 2 years already where he was a top 3-4 tight end or running back.
Yes.
His rookie year.
He would be the number 1 tight end. No, he'd be the number 2 tight end overall if we were going to play that game. But
and then he was probably slightly overdrafted last year because people were saying, "Oh, he's going to do that again," and didn't realize, he led the league in touches and was just Ben Roethlisberger dumping the ball off to him, and that probably wasn't going to happen. And then he disappointed, but he was also hurt with a foot injury for a running back, which
hard to play through, but he did.
Yeah, he did. But put 2 and 2 together, a foot injury to a running back doesn't sound good. And then basically when he got that plate out of his foot from the last 6 weeks or so, the guy was like another top 7 running back. So
he started looking like Najee Harris from the year prior once the plate.
And the Steelers started to run the ball more, and they were winning games by doing that, and they made a late push there at the end. So he's a really interesting one. So did we mention the ADP?
Not yet. Okay. Go ahead. It's right there on the sheet for you.
Yep, ADP 26. So he's going right, early 3rd round, right?
By ranking, he would be the RB12. Should be going around 27 overall. He is going at 26 overall.
Yeah, and I think I'm okay with that, and I'm not too worried about. I know a lot of people are talking about Jaylen Warren. I know Warren did get more play at the last 4 or 5 weeks last year. He was getting 35-40% of the snaps, but I don't necessarily believe it. Mike Tomlin is historically a one running back type of guy.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of history on that.
A lot of history.
And maybe that goes back a decade. That goes back 10 years. That's a very significant sample.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm okay. Like, especially if I do start my draft with 2 wide receivers and Najee's my RB1 in round 3 or something, like I'm fine. I'm fine with that.
We'll get into Jason. I'm going to go to you in a second here, but I'm just going to put this out there. I am totally fine with Najee Harris, even at the very end of the 2nd round. If you feel like you need to get a running back because they're going, your draft might work a little differently than some of the expert drafts, and they're going, I'd take him. I'm fine with this. And we'll get into Jaylen Warren, and that the Jaylen Warren thing is also a reason why I'm okay with Najee Harris, where I would have to take him, because if something was to happen, there's a reason that I'm gonna set that particular golf ball on the tee, and then we're gonna come back to it to swing through it. But no, I'm completely fine with Najee Harris as a back end RB1. This is where he should have been being valued last year. This makes sense, folks. This makes a lot of sense for my expectations for the team, for him, for how the team typically works. So, Jason, before we move off Harris, where are you at on Najee Harris? Are you?
I'm right in line. I mean, I still have him as the RB1 on the team. And overall, I have him at. Oh, that's the wrong Harris. I hate when I put in search and it takes me to Damien. At 14. So.
Oh, was that running back 14? Or...
Yeah.
Okay,
running back 14. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. So you're a little lower, but I could. That's totally fine. That's you're not doing that. There's nothing crazy baked into that. So no, that's fine. So we're all roughly in the same area. He's a low end RB1, high end RB2, and I'm willing to do this, especially because of all the reasons we just listed with him coming on strong at the end of the year. But also, let's talk about Jaylen Warren. The hype train on Jaylen Warren is pretty palpable if you're in fantasy circles. However, if you're not in fantasy circles, you're just a regular person that might be watching this looking for some advice. A lot of people don't know who Jaylen Warren is. He came on last year with this team when Najee was beat up, and then he himself got beat up. Jaylen Warren did, and that kind of threw some cold water on this. Because of that, I can roster Jaylen Warren this way: running back 47 by ranking, 137 overall is where he should be being drafted. Roughly, he's being drafted at 139. Beautiful, love it. There's certain players we talk about and have talked about on previous shows where I feel like you must handcuff. There's always that very short list of the must handcuff guys. This is one of them for me. If I'm going with Harris, I'm making it a point to get Warren at around his relative ADP, because if something was to happen to Najee Harris, this would be Jaylen Warren's job. And from the sample we saw last year, I believe Jaylen Warren could do the job.
Well, and I think at one point last year, he was actually like tight end eligible.
Yeah, he was. No, that's because nobody knows who Jaylen Warren is. No one knows who he is. No one has any idea.
Mike, I can pull out random stuff too. Haha.
That's a good one.
That is a good one. That's a good note. He is not wrong, folks at home. He is not incorrect. That is a true statement. They did line him up
there for a couple times.
He was tight end eligible for a brief window there, and then they took it away once he proved that he was not playing tight end. And he's the real back. He's the real RB2 on this team. Tomlin's even said it. He's the guy.
Yeah. Has the talent for it. Good pass catcher.
He can do all the things that Najee Harris can do, just not quite as well. I have no concerns about him just taking over and slotting right in. Put it to you this way. If Harris went down with a season-end injury, Warren would be one of those players that people are like, I'm going to blow 70% of my fab on this.
Yes.
And I wouldn't even debate you. I'd be like, yeah, sure. You know what? I know what I'm getting. And I can't predict that Warren will get hurt again. So I have to assume that he's healthy, because he is right now. So I'm in on this. I'm in on this as a two-player combo piece. And then they still have Anthony McFarland, but Anthony McFarland doesn't matter. No one cares.
Well, yeah. I had to look because I thought he was one of the shorter ones. 5'8", but 215.
Yeah.
So he
the big boy.
And Harris is at 232 at 6'1". So yeah. He's got a lot of muscle on him, man.
Jaylen Warren is built like a fire hydrant, as they say. It's that's kind of what it is. He's
Doug Martin-esque.
Yeah, not to that quite that level, but it's reminiscent of, for sure. But yeah, no, I think we all agree. Do we all agree Jaylen Warren's the obvious handcuff? And if you're getting Harris at that price tag, we'd agree. Get both. Just get both.
Yeah. The only thing I don't agree with is people saying using Jaylen Warren to knock down Najee further than he's gone down. So, yeah, I agree though. I'm fine with handcuffing him, and I think he could be, like you said, 70% fab guy if Najee does go down. And if anyone was wondering, Jaylen Warren would have been tight end 26 last year.
There you go. There you go. All right, good.
You made it on the list.
I do agree with that, Mike, on the way out of running back here. Don't use the Jaylen Warren hype to downgrade Najee. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
But it does elevate him to handcuff status. So that's kind of the way we would tell you to evaluate this in the background. Moving into wide receiver with this team is very much unchanged from last year. So if you've got the notes from last year, you can pretty much just pencil that in. Diontae Johnson is still on the team. He's still going to be the wide receiver 1, as it were. George Pickens will be the 1B, as it were. He's into his second year on this team. The one note that they did change is instead of Chase Claypool, they brought in Allen Robinson, who had a very disappointing year with the Rams last year, but now appears to be healthy. And all the camp reports are that he's looking good. We'll get into that properly here as we break down the room. But just to continue setting the table, they also have Calvin Austin the third. A lot of people like Calvin Austin the third. Yeah, Jason's psychosis. We'll get into that in a moment.
Talking about AAC players from last show.
Yeah,
Calvin Austin.
Okay, yeah,
Same
that's not
school
helping.
Penny Gainwell.
That's not refuting my psychosis thing that I was just going to. That's just adding to it. And then finally, they still have Miles Boykin, who's been in the league forever and just bounces around the AFC. So shout out to Miles Boykin. Congratulations to you on being employed. Not relevant for fantasy purposes. Only 2 of these players have ADPs. So only 2 are being drafted. They are Diontae Johnson and George Pickens. Diontae Johnson comes in as the wide receiver 27, should be going around 72 overall, is going ADP at 79. I think I get why. We'll just rip the Band-Aid off here. Diontae Johnson, Mike, I know we talked about this in the pre-show. Diontae Johnson had one of the most statistically improbable seasons last year that you could have with the no touchdowns. Really weird. Really weird.
Extremely. And it wasn't because he wasn't being targeted. I think he had the 14th most red zone targets.
He was a wide receiver 3 last year on no touchdowns.
Yeah. Yep. Well, in the red zone, he's being targeted too. I think he had 16 targets, which is more than AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson. Like it was just a Kenny Pickett couldn't get him the ball.
It's a fluke.
So yeah, it was a complete fluke. I love Diontae Johnson where he's going. I think he's a huge value.
That's the takeaway here, folks, is that because people are looking at last year and they're seeing the numbers and the no touchdowns and all that stuff. And also some people are bitter because they had Diontae Johnson on their team last year. And that's one of those similar to DeAndre Swift or yesterday's conversation where it just feels bad. That's Diontae Johnson this year. He just feels bad. The good news is you get a crazy discount on Diontae Johnson, and I'm taking it. I'm taking it at every opportunity in these drafts. This is a good note that we'll touch on at length in the live stream on September 1st. So tune into that. The Steelers is one of those teams similar to the Packers, the Rams to a lesser extent. There's these teams that they're not great and there's no hype around it. And people are just ignoring them largely as they kill each other, trying to get Bills and Eagles and Chiefs and, what have you. And these are the teams where you can get crazy deals that will help you win in fantasy because no one's going to be excited when you take Diontae Johnson in your draft room. They're just going to be like, yeah, whatever. And by the end of the year, you're going to be like, yeah, if we're going to go with old dated jokes from you all are stupid. They're going to be looking for Army guys. Again, shout out to everybody who's over 30 who got that joke. But that's where we are. I think we would all agree. Diontae Johnson, crazy value. Hard recommend. Very much recommending in his ADP.
Yeah, so last year he only had 8 games where he didn't hit double digits. And like you said, no touchdowns. Yeah. So he averaged 12.9 fantasy points in PPR last
without scoring.
Without scoring a TD.
Yep.
There's 6 players in the NFL who've had at least 140 targets since each year since 2020. And it's a lot of guys that you want on your teams. It's Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, Travis Kelce, and Diontae Johnson. So,
I've heard of those players.
Yes. And targets are earned. It's not just like, oh, you're there. You have to earn your targets. You have to get open. So, yeah, he's
always wide open, it feels
like.
He
is largely wide open.
Whenever you watch him, he is open.
And I hope, we talked about Allen Robinson, who I don't think is going to be fantasy relevant, but I do hope it opens it up to maybe using Diontae a little bit more downfield a bit. And Allen Robinson is more of just that possession receiver.
I don't know. We're going to get into that here in a moment. We'll talk about positional theory craft with these guys here in a second, because that's also going to touch on Calvin Austin. That's where we're going to Mike, you and I are going to nod politely while Jason talks. That's how that segment of this show will go. Before we get to that, we got to do George Pickens real quick. So George Pickens is one of those guys that a lot of people very excited about. He's had a very interesting rookie year. No one can deny. What's that?
Athletic freak.
Yes, athletic freak. No one could deny that he's fun to watch, and he had a nice little year in his rookie year last year. And what's fun is we just got done going through the Diontae Johnson ADP. George Pickens, wide receiver 37, translates to 79 overall. So he should be going in the same relative range if you go by tiers as Diontae Johnson. In fact, his ADP, though, he's going 2 spots behind Diontae Johnson at 81. For me, what that tells me is I'm going to roster a lot of Diontae Johnson. I will not roster nearly as much George Pickens. I will let someone else deal with that. It's not even that I think he couldn't return on that ADP, gentlemen. I think he could, but I think you're paying sticker price for George Pickens at this point. What would need to happen for George Pickens to outperform that?
I mean, Kenny Pickett to throw 30 touchdowns or a Diontae injury, So I'm not the biggest Pickens fan.
Throw 30 touchdowns. We got to redo all the projections. All the projections got to get redone, sir.
To be clear, I don't.
Yeah,
I'm not a big George Pickens fan. I think he's a good player, and would I be surprised if I'm wrong? And he hits? No, but I just don't think. He makes those spectacular catches, but that's just not the type of player I want. Give me Diontae Johnson. They're going in the same range.
My entire argument
every day.
If we're picking in the same place, and I need to take my Steelers wide receiver here within 2 picks of each other, well, then it's Diontae Johnson every time. And we're not debating this. It's not I'm not debating this with people. That's just what I'm doing.
Yeah. I don't even think Pickens will be the second targeted player on this team, which we'll get to.
It's very possible it's Freiermuth. We'll just get that out of the way right now. It's very possible it's Freiermuth or Najee. Could see that too.
Yeah.
That's less likely, but I could see it.
Yeah. I mean, there's not even a lock that he's the third now that you mentioned the Najee thing. So, yeah.
I think it would probably be Freiermuth, but yeah, I don't hate George Pickens. This is similar to my conversation with yesterday's show with the Eagles. I don't hate George Pickens. I enjoy watching George Pickens play football. He's very athletic, very talented.
He's a high pointer.
Do you think they're going to throw enough to justify this? Because I don't.
How often do you think Pickens is going to try and make that throw? Where he's covered and he just, I'd rather go to the
curl
guy
it.
Wide
He
open.
might. I think it's going to be hard to do that when you're stuffing the ball in Najee Harris's chest again and again and again and again. I think it's going to be hard for that. That's going to make it challenging.
Or you see Johnson just streaming across wide
open, uncovered for no reason. For reasons that escape me. He's just open. He's good at creating separation. I get that, but it's just they don't. I don't know. It's hard for me to get excited about the George Pickens at that relative ADP. 6th round?
9th round?
Yeah.
Maybe more interested?
6th round's crazy, in my opinion.
Yeah, 6th round's a little rich.
Yeah.
Technically, 100%. It's 7th round. I want to be clear. I miscalculated by 8 spots. Technically, it's the 7th round. It doesn't really change my answer very much. It makes me, but again, it's not the issue. It's also going in the 7th round is Diontae Johnson. And I'm much more interested in that.
We'll call back to the old joke. You can take the trolley to the top of the mountain, or you can take the mule. It's just the same price.
It's the same price. And oh God, we're doing the greatest hits here of the 30-year-old jokes. Mike, I think you and I think all three of us, but Mike, you laid it out very succinctly where it's remember last year when Diontae Johnson was a 3rd or 4th round pick, and now I can get him in the 7th round. And this is my whole point about you got to look at these teams that people are sleeping on that they're not interested in because there's no buzz around it because it's not sexy. It's how you can find players like this where it's that's a great deal. What a deal. It's like Michael Pittman from the Colts show where it's the hate has gone way too far. What a deal.
I'm a little more nervous now though. But we'll get to the wrap up.
With the on the wrap up show with the Richardson and the blah 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 blah. We'll talk about that on the wrap up show. But the other names to know. So I think we've covered, unless anyone has anything to add on the big two. We'll do the other 2 names here real quick. Perennial heartbreaker Allen Robinson is now in the mix here. And Robinson last year was being drafted as a 5th round pick. So we've seen Allen Robinson for years be relevant in the NFL, whether it was with the Bears or in Jacksonville.
Some in the Rams. He had some.
He was on the Rams. I wouldn't say relevant. He was there.
They threw him the ball.
Did they? That's kind of the problem. Did they? Or did they just throw Cooper Kupp again and again and again and again and again and again and again on a loop?
Week 1, he had that like one red zone target, which at the end of the game, and everyone was like, all right, he's there.
All right, we got it. And then after that, no, it was just pain. It was just only pain after that. I know I rostered Allen Robinson in a couple leagues. It was painful. And you just kept every week. You're just like, I just can't start him. You just stick him on your bench, and it's just a waste of a 5th round pick. This is different. There's no ADP. I've seen this gentleman be very productive in the NFL for years. Would it shock me if Allen Robinson carved out some kind of role where he could get to some kind of fantasy relevant position? No.
Nope.
So I would know who Allen Robinson is. I wouldn't draft him because you don't have to. But it really wouldn't shock me if you guys were talking about Allen Robinson on the waiver wire show pretty early in the season here. As it turns into like, well, he's kind of carved out that Chase Claypool role, but he's better than Chase Claypool when healthy. And from what all the camp reports are, and take these for what they're worth, they're camp reports, Allen Robinson's looking really good in camp, and Pickett's looking for him. Not to the level of Diontae Johnson, but this is the other reason why I'm a little nervous about George Pickens. Because Diontae is going to get his. To your point, Mike, about targets are earned and trust is built. Not worried about Diontae getting targets. That's the thing. That's just going to happen. I am a little nervous that Allen Robinson does sort of like mess with some of the George Pickens stuff. And then it makes me nervous about the thing we're going to talk about in a second, or I should say that Jason's going to talk about in a second while I nod politely. And then if he goes too long, then not so politely.
Yeah.
Allen Robinson, like, would it shock you if he kind of stole some of George Pickens' lunch? What? And then, Mike, we'll do this way. We'll do it this way because you brought it up. Let's go back to what you were talking about. What do you think Allen Robinson's role is on this team? Because I think he's Chase Claypool. What do you think he is?
Yeah, I think he's more of that just possession receiver. That's kind of my hope for him. Is just
hope or expectation.
My hope / expectation is that, and it opens up Diontae to stop just giving him these 5-yard passes and.
But I like when he gets the 5-yard passes. That's how I get my guaranteed floor.
I do like it, but I also want to see a little bit more downfield like we saw, I think, a couple of years ago because we know he can. So that's kind of my hope.
2020 you talking about when he was
2020.
Yeah. All that blends together because of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, 2021 was his big year, but even then it was just a lot of targets. But anyways, Allen Robinson, I think he has a role in this offense. I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking – week 4 or 5, Allen Robinson, he can be a bye week replacement because he's getting, 4 catches and 50 yards or something. He has that 50, 60 yard.
And he might be able to break one and take it to the house because he can still kind of do that from what we've seen.
I am surprised he doesn't have an ADP. I thought I understand why, but I thought.
Oh no, the people big mad.
Yeah,
they don't forget what happened to him last year. You were 5th round pick and you just hosed so many people. No, I get why there's no ADP. I am a little surprised.
Years,
yeah, I'm a little surprised that it's not still a thing because there's all these other players that still have ADPs that I'm like, really? We're still doing this? But no, I get why at this point we're like, no, we're done. You got to prove it at this point to get back on fantasy rosters. Jason, I think I can understand where you're going to go, and I'm just going to get out of your way here and let you talk about who you think is the 3rd wide receiver option for this team with Chase Claypool departing.
Well, and I mean, it is really unfortunate because last year he was set up to be the field stretcher. It looked like that was going to be the case. Calvin Austin is the guy I'm talking about. Absolutely love it. Coming out of Memphis, super fast, super athletic, ran a 4.32 40. He is quick. I think compared to everybody else, he is the one who, if you're going to throw it deep, if you're going to chuck that ball, that's the guy you're going to find because he's going to be open because he's separated from just speed. I mean, his burst is incredible. He's absolutely just a freak when it comes to his just athleticism. What hurts him is he's short, which not that big a deal because if you separate and you're open for far enough down the field and the quarterback can actually see you, not an issue. Also, like I said, he had a foot injury last year, took him out right before the start of the season. I was so hyped for him. Came back. I was a little nervous about it this year, but in his first game, he broke open, took a 76-yard touchdown. I mean, and they're using him in the run game as well for jet sweeps. These are like things that aren't really what you're expecting out of the Steelers, but if they're going to use him, this is the guy I want. The upside is all there, and he's just a great player that I'm hyped on because I watched him at Memphis. So
beyond not having an ADP, a lot of people don't even know who he is.
Sorry.
Calvin
Austin the third.
Yeah, it's
I kind of agree with Jay. I don't think he's gonna be fantasy relevant, but I do think he's gonna make an impact on this team, and I think he's gonna take away from Pickens a little bit. So I do like Calvin Austin as well.
I don't have a problem with Calvin
Austin.
I don't have a problem with Calvin Austin in and of itself, but I'm just saying, like, similar to Allen Robinson, where we just said he's going to have to prove it to me to get onto a fantasy roster.
Yeah.
Okay. Calvin Austin's going to have to do what Allen Robinson has to do, plus a bunch.
Yes.
To develop enough trust to actually get to a point where he'd be even rosterable. I'm not debating whether or not he could be valuable to the actual Steelers pro football organization. That's not what this show is. Like, That's fine. That's fine. I could see that. In the same way that Braxton Berrios has value at certain levels. You know what I mean? Like, or Andy Isabella. If you could combine those two people, that's kind of what Calvin Austin is. Yeah, sure. Like, I'm not debating whether or not Calvin Austin could have value to the Steelers, but I just don't. You're going to have to do a couple things before I'm ready to have you on one of my fantasy rosters, because
sitting out a whole year definitely hurt him, I think, because
it hurt him. And it's like, in a world where Donovan Peoples-Jones is a superior NFL talent, and it took him 3 years to catch on at a fantasy relevant level. Okay. Like, but we'll see if Calvin Austin can carve out a role for himself that actually would get him to anything past maybe even NFL relevance and then into fantasy relevance. But yeah, the one that I would have my eye on is Allen Robinson first, where it's like, okay, what are you? Are you a possession guy now? Are you still the down the field stretcher? Like you're taking Clay Claypool's old, the new Claypool. Yeah. Are you is that your job now? I don't know what your job is. And so it's like, and you roasted me in the past, so I'm out. You got to prove it to me to get back in my good graces. But we've all seen what Allen Robinson can do from a historical perspective. So I get why the rankings on this team work the way they do with Diontae and Pickens. The real value here is the running backs and Johnson. That's what I want on this team is the running backs and Diontae. And then and no one listen to this because you're gonna screw up my ADPs for my own drafts. So I hope you've all turned off by now and I've got your click and I don't care. The final note, as we've touched on it a couple times, is Pat Freiermuth. Old steady Eddie Pat Freiermuth. He is, in the way that Dallas Goedert is from yesterday's show, is Jalen Hurts' binky. It is his whoopee. It is his safety blanket. That is what Pat Freiermuth is to Kenny Pickett. It's a great thing for a young quarterback to have, a big target that works over the middle of the field, that runs like young Jason Witten. Run 7 yards and cut, and then I'm just going to hit you. And it's like, that's very valuable to have. That really is what Pat Freiermuth's job is. He gets some red zone work too. The problem with this becomes, I used to love recommending Pat Freiermuth when he was cheap.
Cheap, yeah.
He's not cheap anymore. This is the problem, is that Freiermuth, by ranking, would be the tight end 9, should be coming in at about 111 overall. If that's where he was being drafted, this show would be ending right now. But he isn't. He's being drafted at ADP 93. And I'll just say this, and I'm going to leave it. If I was going to do that, I would be much more inclined to just take Dallas Goedert in the 6th round. Be way happier with that. So this is that weird no man's land of the back end of tight end where I'm like, if I just wait, I can get at an extreme discount, I could get things like Tyler Higbee, Cole Kmet. Yeah, it was Greg Dulcich until they started throwing the ball to Trotman, and now I don't know what to believe over there anymore. This is why we tell people to not draft early.
But he's potentially dropping. So.
Yeah, well, he is dropping. He's getting down to
free.
Greg Dulcich is getting down to Jawan Johnson territory. And that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing I'm talking about here. I'm talking about you could get David Njoku, Dalton Schultz, Tyler Higbee. I don't really want Dalton Schultz, but Njoku, Higbee, Kmet. Like these are all things that I could get if I'm willing to wait. If I could wait 2 rounds and get something like that, it's broadly comparable.
Yeah, I mean, look at it last year. Higbee, Schultz, Gerald Everett, they all averaged like basically half a point less than Freiermuth. It's just not enough of a difference. And you look at who some other players like Brandon Cooks, Khalil Herbert, some guys going around him, Cortland Sutton.
Khalil Herbert's coming up, though. That's the problem. That stupid preseason game. That stupid preseason game ruined it for everybody.
Yeah. But there's just guys with way more upside. Like, just wait. Don't take, like you said, take Goddard. If you really want a tight end that high,
take Goddard or wait.
Yeah, or wait. Exactly.
It's a shame because I like Pat Freiermuth, the player.
Yeah.
No issue with Pat Freiermuth, the player.
Yeah.
Solid player. Just don't like the ADP.
Fell off a little bit last year. I was hoping that catch percentage would stay up there from his rookie year.
That didn't help. His backup is Connor Hayward, who does not catch passes and is literally there to block.
Well,
so that's
Darnell Washington, rookie they drafted third.
You can talk about that if you want. You know my feelings on rookie tight end.
Well, no. I'm just saying
he's large size.
He's huge. He's an offensive lineman that is playing tight end, but he could have.
He's biggie sized. That man. That man is a giant.
He is fun to watch in the as his blocking, but I don't think he'll be fantasy relevant. But I do think he could take touchdown opportunities away from Freiermuth.
I think they could literally use him like the fridge, to use a 30, 40-year-old reference. Like that man is fridge size. Like I could see them putting him in as a goal line back and just be like, just knock everybody out of your way, bro. You weigh like 300 pounds. Like go nuts. You're huge. Like
it's another.
I think I know the answer. You ever see The Princess Bride?
With a giant.
Yes, that's what he looks like. He looks like Andre the Giant, except he doesn't really look like Andre the Giant in the face. But what I mean is, when you have Andre the Giant standing next to everyone else in that movie, that's what he looks like against NFL players. It's hysterical. Like I'm like 6'2", and most people come up to about here on me. He's standing next to people that are like 6'6", and he's like a half a foot taller, and it's like that's insane. It's just nuts. Like I get why they wanted him.
Yeah,
it's not a fantasy thing, but I do get it from a real football perspective. Like large, he is LRGE. Large.
It could affect Freiermuth in the red zone.
It theoretically could. He could affect anybody. He's massive.
Najee.
Yeah, he could affect Najee. He could affect Najee. Like that dude's massive. Like. If there's anything to worry about, it's that guy. Not based on talent or anything. It's the man is a giant. It's unbelievable how huge.
You thought Henry was scary when he started going.
He's a massive human being. Like if you're, we'll do other dated references on our way out. You ever see The Little Giants?
Oh god.
It's like that. It's like that. It's like 6 people are trying to tackle him. He's dragging them along. Like you couldn't. These are grown men. Like you just. No way that guy. Like I am curious to see what they do with him in terms of real football. Because what do you do? Like
could help Najee. We talked about hurting him. It could help him.
Does he block? I guess he blocks. Like does he block? Does he catch passes? I don't know. Like it's weird. Like I don't know what his job is.
I think he's a blocker red zone guy. I mean, the guy ran like a low 4.6 as well.
That was the other thing that's scary is that you see something that big going that fast, and it's like that shouldn't be possible. It's like when Mekhi Becton was running, and it's like, nah, that's not normal. That's not a normal thing. No one that big can move that. Nothing that big moves that fast except for a bear. That's why bears are so scary. Just point of fact. Like it's just what it is. Like that's why
also
bears
hippos.
are scary. Yeah, also hippos. Nothing that big moves that quick. And so you see it happen, and it's like, no, your brain is like, it's a primal human fear thing. Like nothing that big moves like that. That's terrifying. Anyway. We have officially devolved into schlock here at this point. We have covered the Steelers. But yeah, to wrap it up, the big notes here, I already touched on it. Want Harris, want Warren to go with it. Really want Diontae. Whew, love that. Everything else I can kind of take or leave. Probably would leave. More often leave than not. And just pay attention to teams like the Steelers as you're going through your fantasy thing. And sneak preview of the show we'll do on the 1st. Pay attention to some of these teams because we see it even in the viewership of the shows, guys. Like literally, you can tell like what folks are really hype on. if you're savvy at fantasy, pay attention to those teams that people aren't paying attention to, because that's where you can really win your league. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving on. We have one more show to knock out for tonight's batch record, and in the listening audience's world, that will be tomorrow. And we will be talking about everybody's favorite topic. I know how excited Jason is to talk about the San Francisco 49ers. But until then, keep up the nonsense.
I'm Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, and you can find all the guys at ImportantNonsense.com. Kaboom!